Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey here once again with another video on just DC as a whole, but I guess more specifically the DCEU. So with the end of the DCU coming our way in the form of Aquaman 2 or Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, whichever way you want to put it, over this past week, I thought it would be interesting to go over all the projects that were announced and also, I guess, into a decent amount of development with some of these. You know, some were filmed, some of all their episodes or scripts written before being scrapped. So I thought it'd be interesting to go over all of the ones that we didn't get to see. You know, the DCEU has sort of been known for announcing a lot and maybe putting a bit too much on their plate before really having too much of a plan, and this video would just highlight all of those, as well as any extra information that we knew about them for each specific project if available. But of course, throughout the video, let me know in the comments section down below which of these ones you would have wanted to see the most, whether it's just because you like the character or just the general premise makes you excited based maybe off what something was, you know, done already in the DCU, because some of these characters were already seen in other movies, while some never saw the screen at all. Now, we are going to go in alphabetical order just because it's a bit easier, because it wasn't really like a specific release date, so I thought if we're going to order these, we'll just go alphabetical order. So some of you might be able to guess which one first, and it's one that had a lot, is that even English? But a lot of publicity around it because it was a bit controversial, and that is, of course, Batgirl. This was completely finished filming, as we know, before being scrapped by Warner Brothers for, you know, a tax write-off, so presumably we should never see the light of day, you know, even though it's all done and everything like that, unless hackers get a hold of it. Of course, it wouldn't be fully finished in regards to VFX and everything like that, but there'd be like a rough assembly cut. Maybe it leaks, I don't know, but it would have played off the original ending of The Flash with Michael Keaton's Batman being involved and setting up more going forward in this world, but that's not going to be the case anymore. Next up is The Batman, but Ben Affleck's The Batman. Now, this was going to be set after Justice League. It was co-written by Ben Affleck and Jeff Johns, and also going to be directed by and starring Ben Affleck as Batman, as you'd expect. And it would have had Deathstroke as the villain reportedly within it, and it was scrapped after, like, this version, I guess, was scrapped after Ben Affleck just, lost interest and morphed into becoming the Matt Reeves Batman movie. Not the story, sort of just the title of The Batman, though Ben Affleck was still attached to play Batman when Matt Reeves signed on to direct, so there was a bit of a crossover there. And of course, a lot of changes happened here, but it still became a movie at the end of the day. But this actual version of Ben Affleck's The Batman it was scrapped. Next one, another Batman project, but this is Batman Beyond. And this would, of course, been another Michael Keaton movie that would have played on from, after the events of The Flash and also Batgirl as well, with a new Batman take on the mantle. We weren't too sure if it was necessarily set in the future or just set in the present day because you already have that older Batman in Michael Keaton, but it was just scrapped after these changes with what they were doing with DC. There was a rumor going around that The Flash performed, even though it was all this stuff had changed, that they might have done like a solo, just self-contained Batman Beyond thing, but no real, momentum gained from that because, of course, The Flash didn't really do that well in the box office. Next up is Black Canary. Now, this would have continued on the story of Dinah Lance from the Birds of Prey film, or Harley Quinn, or what was it called? Birds of Prey and the Manson, whatever it was. That Birds of Prey film, of course, played by Jurnee Smollett. Not a ridiculous amount was known about it. It got a lot of traction when it was first announced it was in development, but after that, not much has really been said about it, and we should assume that it's no longer going to be. Next up is Cyborg. Now, this was a part of the original slate that was revealed by Warner Brothers for the DCU with, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, Justice League, The Flash, Aquaman, all of them, and it would have followed films, I think it was Flash, Aquaman, and then Cyborg. Those were the order after Justice League, I think. Now, not much is really known about the story. It did feel like whatever they would have put into a solo story or for a solo film for Cyborg was just in the Snyder Cut anyway. Like, that story with Cyborg and the Snyder Cut feels like what you would do in a solo film for the character. So I don't know what they would have done. I guess grid, because there's not much Cyborg stuff in the comics, at least a lot of stuff to carry a movie, I guess. But I guess you could just treat the Snyder Cut as the Cyborg story, Cyborg solo film, because it had a lot in there. Next up is Deadshot, of course. This was the Will Smith character, and it would have been a spin-off with the Will Smith version of the character from the first Suicide Squad film. Once again, not too much known about this, but it was in development and in the works at some stage. Next up is Deathstroke, and this is, of course, the Joe Manganiello, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, version. And this would have been directed by Gareth Evans. He had done, what's that room? The Raid movies? Did he do the Raid movies? I think it was him. But then there's a lot of excitement around this, and of course this probably would have spun off the Batman, the Ben Affleck Batman movie as well. And it would have been interesting to see what this was, especially if he did some backstory and flashbacks and stuff with the character. But once again, we're not going to see it most likely. Next up is Gotham City Sirens, and this is a bit of a weird one. I guess maybe it's somewhat similar to the Ben Affleck Batman thing, because this would have been directed by David Ayer, who did the first Suicide Squad, so pretty much a Suicide Squad spin-off, but it slowly morphed into becoming the Birds of Prey film that came out in 2020. So a lot of the work that was sort of pushed to do like a Harley Quinn-led sort of group movie, then formed into the Birds of Prey film. So we didn't really get this, but it led to something, I guess. The HBO Max Green Lantern show, not lanterns, that's in James Gunn's world, but this was in development for a long time, like years and years and years. It sort of got screwed over by COVID. This is probably a show that we would have actually seen if COVID didn't happen. So it's a bit of a weird one, but this was in development for a long time. They actually did cast Finn Wittrock officially as Guy Gardner. There were other rumors in regards to people that have been cast. I think they'd cast someone for Alan Scott, but it didn't get as much traction. I don't know if it was actually like 100% confirmed, but Finn Wittrock was for Guy Gardner and had all of its episodes written from the first episode through to the season 1 finale. This was developed by Greg Berlanti of the Arrowverse, of course, alongside creators such as Mark Guggenheim, who was an executive producer, and Jeff Johns, who was helping with it as well as a bunch of other Arrowverse affiliated creators. Lamont McGee, I think his name is, who did some Black Lightning stuff, like for the show Black Lightning. Yeah, this was scrapped after the takeover by James Gunn. And it didn't form into, but now we are still going to get a show about Green Lanterns on HBO Max, or at least Max, but it's going to be called Lanterns, so we're going to still be getting it. But speaking of Green Lanterns, Green Lantern Corps, this was of course a movie that was slated in that original slate, like Cyborg was with all the Flash, Aquaman and stuff, and this would have been a buddy cop-like movie with Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. It was referenced to be in the vein, I guess, of Lethal Weapon. And we will see something similar with the Lantern series, as I was mentioning before, in James Gunn's DCU, because that will have Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart in that show. And I guess it'd be like a buddy cop sort of thing. So I guess we're going to get sort of a version of this somewhat soon. Next up, Harley Quinn and the Joker. This was a film for them. I think it was actually called Harley Quinn vs. the Joker, but I've written down Harley Quinn and the Joker. I don't know. I think it was Harley Quinn vs. Joker, but I might be wrong. But anyway, this was just scrapped when Birds of Prey took shape. Like Harley Quinn, because she was so popular from the first Suicide Squad movie, there was a couple of different projects with her involved, like Gotham City Sirens, and then of course this one. But Birds of Prey was the one that emerged, and they did that. Our Man. Now, I think this was going to be, at least it appeared it was going to be a standalone film, not really connected to anything. Like it looked like it was going to be done by a different production company than any of the other movies had done previously. So this was a random one, and not really much was known about it. So yeah, this is like the one that a lot of people might not even have heard of, because it sort of was in the news for a day and then just went away because it was so random. Next up is Joker, but not Joker starring Joaquin Phoenix, but the Jared Leto version. Now, this was in the works, like just before the Joaquin Phoenix version was sort of like properly developed. I think it was happening, and then it was sort of announced that like the Joaquin Phoenix version was happening and this was still in development. So there was 2 Joker solo movies in production, or in development, sorry, at the same time. But it was scrapped before I think the ball really started rolling with the Joaquin Phoenix version. So yeah, I don't know how popular a Jared Leto Joker movie might have been. Maybe for the meme, I'm not too sure, but yeah, we're never going to get it. Next up, HBO Max Justice League Dark. And this was pretty much like a world that was being built up, as well as specifically like a Justice League Dark show. This was being developed by J.J. Abrams when he signed this deal with Warner Brothers and DC and stuff, with some casting being hinted at, like for John Constantine and stuff, but nothing really developed, at least too much publicly, in regards to all these, different shows or these specific characters are going to be there. So this was big news, and it faded really quickly, and it seems like it's just not going to happen from this point going forward, at least this iteration. Next up, Justice League 2/3. I mean, I think we know the story here. Snyder Cut drama. Yeah, we're not getting any sequels to that, so yeah. I have put Lobo here. Not much is really known about it, but it was talked about, so I thought I'd include it because it would have been there, but nothing really happened with it. I'd assume we're probably going to see Lobo in this DCU with James Gunn. He's tweeted out a picture of Lobo, I'm pretty sure, so probably see the character, but well, that's a wait and see. Next up is probably one of the more wanted ones, I guess you could say, and that's Man of Steel 2. Now, there were a lot of rumors about what this would have been story-wise and different directors that were attached, like Matthew Vaughn was one, for example. And most would say Man of Steel 2 should have, come out before Batman v Superman did in 2016 or whatever it was, but it never saw the light of day. So it is what it is, I guess, but it would have been interesting to see how the DCU would have been different if we got Man of Steel 2 rather than Batman v Superman, and that sort of began with like the rushing of things. Next up is The New Gods. Now, this script was written by Ava DuVernay and Tom King. Tom King is now involved with the DCU with James Gunn, and it would have had Ava DuVernay directing. No castings were really announced for this, but they were working on it for a decent amount of time, but it was scrapped in I think the lead up to the James Gunn takeover. I think it was scrapped before James Gunn took over, but I might be wrong with that, but it was around the time at the very least, like within 3 months of it or whatever, if it wasn't after James Gunn took over. So yeah. Next up, I have put Plastic Man because it was something that was talked about, and that I think like Gail Simone had said that she'd heard there was a Plastic Man thing in development, but there's not much information about it outside of that. So I thought I'd mention it, but nothing really known. Next up is Static Shock, even though it's just Static. I think, yeah, just the character's just called Static, but anyway, I guess the property would have been called Static Shock, like the cartoon, or the TV show. But this was just going to be produced by Michael B. Jordan. Not much known about it outside of that, but yeah, Michael B. Jordan would have produced it. Next up is The Trench. Now, this one was probably known to a lot of people. This would have been a spin-off from Aquaman by, I've just written down James Gunn in my notes. James Wan. It would have been James Wan that did this. Of course, he directed both the Aquaman films. And it was later revealed that this would have been, I think, a Black Manta-focused project. So we thought it was going to be like a horror trench thing specifically. I think the original pitch was that it's like these just like people on a boat, and then they face the trench like we saw in the first Aquaman movie, and then they have to survive it or something like that. But then it apparently would change where it was like, I think it was a Black Manta focused project by the end of it, before it was, I guess, scrapped. Next up is the Val Zod project, whether it was a show or a movie. I think it was going to be on HBO Max, but I don't think they'd really confirm whether it was going to be a show or a film. But anyway, once again, like Static Shock, this would have been produced by Michael B. Jordan, and he was actually rumored to be the one playing Val Zod, so he would have produced it as well as potentially starred in it as well. But I don't think this one's been like officially canned, because it was specifically meant to be like an Elseworlds thing anyway. But I don't know, at this point, we'll have to wait and see. Next up, we have Wonder Twins. Now, we had KJ Apa and Isabel May cast as the Wonder Twins, and this was like one of the weirder ones, I guess, in this list, because they were cast, I think it was announced, and then they were cast like a week or so later, and then the project was scrapped like a week after that, if not the same week. It was a weird just period, that whole thing with that Wonder Twins thing. This would have been an HBO Max film, so pretty low budget, I guess. But this was weird, like that whole thing. This sort of screamed like very disorganized at that point, so a weird one. Next up, we actually have Wonder Woman 3. Now, this is scrapped like after I think it was a few months of James Gunn, or like in like these first month or two of James Gunn like being hired, and it was just pretty much scrapped after not fitting in with James Gunn's plan. The script was written, I think it was done by Patty Jenkins and Jeff Johns, who done the second Wonder Woman, and it appeared it would have been set in the modern day by the sounds of it, after the first was set in World War One and the second was set in the 80s. Makes sense, you just go to the modern day, I guess, and actually do a Wonder Woman film there. We've seen her in the modern day, but no specific movie about Wonder Woman in the modern day. But yeah, apparently it just didn't fit in what James Gunn was doing. We don't know what they're doing with Wonder Woman outside of that like prequel show, I guess. So it's a wait and see, but yeah, this one's not happening, at least in the current form it was. And the final thing is Zatanna. Now, this was the most recent project to be confirmed, so it's fitting it's the last alphabetically, and it's also the most recent to be, confirmed as scrapped. And it would have been written and directed by Emerald Fennell, who did like Saltburn. What's the goddamn movie I'm thinking? God, it's a good movie. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, the first movie she did. No castings were teased, but it would have been tied to what J.J. Abrams was doing with Justice League Dark on HBO Max. She even said that, I think, when confirming that it was dead. So yeah, no real development there outside of knowing that she was writing it and stuff like that, but would have been interesting to see what they did, not only with Zatanna, but just the Justice League Dark thing as a whole. But I guess we'll be waiting X amount of years to see what James Gunn does with it, I guess. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome. You could drop a like and to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts on this. As I said before, which one of these ones would you have wanted to see the most? And which one were you surprised that maybe got a bit into development and then just got sort of scrapped? I don't know, let me know in the comments. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.